I never thought my senior year of high school would end with me essentially being a refugee, sleeping in a car, all because of something my best friend did. And honestly, the sheer shock of it is why I'm telling this story. I mean, here I was 17 years old, top of my class, ready for college, and suddenly the rug was yanked out from under me, not by some random tragedy, but by a calculated betrayal. Was I wrong for the nuclear option I chose when I hit rock bottom? Tell me, honestly, if you would have simply let them get away with destroying your entire future over a petty lie. This isn't just a story about a kid losing his home. It's about what happens when you push someone with nothing left to lose. It all started so innocently, the way big, life-changing disasters usually do. My name is Alex, and for the last 4 years, my life had revolved around two things: academics and my best friend Mark. Mark and I had been inseparable since middle school. We were the classic odd couple. I was the quiet, scholarship-focused nerd, and he was the charming, athletic, but utterly chaotic golden boy. His family, the Harrisons, were wealthy, old money, big house on the hill, everything you see in movies. My family, on the other hand, was just scraping by. My mom worked 2 jobs, and we rented a tiny rundown apartment that felt smaller every year. When my mom got the opportunity to take a temporary, high-paying contract out of state, the kind of money that could actually fund my first year of college, it was a huge deal. It meant a chance at a real future. The only problem was leaving me. I was 17, but she couldn't just leave me alone for 6 months. And disrupting my senior year, with all the AP exams and college applications, was out of the question. That's where Mark and his mother, Mrs. Harrison, stepped in. Mrs. Harrison, a woman who always prided herself on her community spirit, offered for me to stay with them. It seemed like a godsend. She assured my mother it would be absolutely no trouble, just a comfortable place for Alex to focus on his studies. My mom, after countless tearful goodbyes and a massive relief that my future was secure, left for her contract in October. The first month was fine, even great. I had my own room, a spacious guest room that was bigger than my entire apartment, with a desk, perfect for studying. I was careful, quiet, and tried to be as helpful as possible. I did my own laundry, cleaned up after myself religiously, and even took their dog, a pampered little terrier named Winston, for walks. Mark and I were thrilled, living out our high school buddy fantasy, staying up late studying or playing video games. I felt like I was finally experiencing what a stable, comfortable life felt like, and it fueled my drive to get into a great university. The shift started subtly, creeping in like a slow, toxic fog, right after Mark started dating Sarah. Sarah was new to our school, beautiful, manipulative, and deeply insecure. She came from a background similar to mine, but instead of using it as motivation, she used it as a chip on her shoulder, constantly seeking to prove her worth through material things and social dominance. She hated me, plain and simple, and I knew why. I was smarter than Mark, I was a good influence on him, and frankly, I was a constant, living reminder that Mark could choose something other than her shallow world. She saw me as a threat to her control over him, and more importantly, a threat to her image of him as the only perfect guy. She began by planting seeds of doubt and resentment. She'd make passive-aggressive comments in front of Mrs. Harrison, loud enough for me to hear. "It must be so difficult, Mrs. Harrison, having an extra person to take care of, especially one who isn't family." Or she'd find some minor, fabricated issue. "Mark, did Alex forget to take out the trash? It's just so much extra work for you guys." Mrs. Harrison, who was already prone to being easily influenced and loved a good bit of gossip, started to listen. The initial warmth of her charity began to cool. The atmosphere in the house turned hostile. Every time I walked into the kitchen, Mrs. Harrison would suddenly look stressed. Every time I opened the refrigerator, I felt her eyes boring into my back. Mark, completely blinded by Sarah and terrified of losing her, did absolutely nothing. He became a ghost, avoiding me in the halls and even pulling away when I tried to talk to him about it. "Dude, just ignore her," was all he would say. "Mom's just stressed about work." But I knew it wasn't work. It was me. It was the feeling that I was an imposition, a charity case that had overstayed his welcome. The breaking point came in late January. I had just gotten my acceptance letter to my dream school, a major university with a full-ride scholarship. I was ecstatic and rushed downstairs to share the news with Mrs. Harrison, hoping this success would finally validate her decision to help me. Instead, she was on the phone, her voice tight and hushed, but the words were clear. "I just don't know how much longer I can deal with it, Carol. He's always here. It feels like I'm running a charity for the poor boy. And honestly, Mark is acting like a slob because he has another boy to clean up after. I wish I hadn't agreed to this. It's just too much." She saw me then, frozen on the stairs, holding the acceptance letter. Her face went pale, but instead of apologizing, she hung up the phone and glared at me. "I need you to start contributing more, Alex. This isn't a free ride." She didn't even ask about the letter. My heart shattered. I was being actively resented for merely existing, for following the rules she herself had set. The irony was suffocating. I went back to my room and tried to focus, but the air was thick with tension. Then came the incident that sealed my fate. Sarah, in one of her fits of spite, decided to frame me. Mrs. Harrison had a priceless antique porcelain doll that sat on a shelf in the living room, a family heirloom that she treasured. Mark later confessed that Sarah intentionally knocked it over while they were fooling around, and then convinced a cowardly Mark to blame it on me. The next morning, I found Mrs. Harrison standing over the shattered pieces, her face a mask of furious, cold disappointment. "Alex," she said, her voice dangerously low. "The doll. I know it was you. You must have been careless, sneaking in late last night." I frantically denied it, swearing on everything I held dear that I hadn't even been in the living room. She just shook her head. "Don't lie to me. Mark was asleep. It could only have been you. I thought you were a good kid, Alex, but you're just like your background, careless and irresponsible. I've had enough. I can't trust you anymore." That was it. No discussion. No investigation. Just a firm, cold pronouncement. "I want you out of my house by the end of the week. Tell your mother to make other arrangements." Out by the end of the week. In the middle of the school year. 6 months before graduation. My life was collapsing around me. I called my mom, trying to minimize the disaster, but when she heard the details, she was devastated, furious at Mrs. Harrison and terrified for me. Her contract was rigid, and leaving now meant losing the college money we desperately needed. We were trapped. I spent the next 2 days panicking. Where could I go? I had no other family in the state. I tried pleading with Mark, but he just mumbled about how sorry he was, how he couldn't choose between me and Sarah, and how I should just try to understand. Understanding? Understanding that his selfish, cowardly inaction was sending me out onto the street? That's when the rage settled in, a cold, hard stone in my gut. They had taken everything from me, my stability, my safety, my trust, and most importantly, my home. And they thought they could get away with it because I was the poor kid, with no recourse. I had to find a temporary solution. I withdrew every penny from my small savings, about $200. I quietly packed a duffel bag with my most important possessions, my clothes, my laptop, my school books, and my phone. I told Mrs. Harrison I'd found a temporary place to stay with another classmate, just to buy myself time. She simply nodded. Relief etched all over her face. The irony was the temporary place was my old, beat-up 2005 Ford Focus, which my mom had left for me to get to school. For the next 2 weeks, I lived out of that car. I parked in the back corner of a 24-hour gym parking lot, where I could use the showers and the Wi-Fi. I kept a tight schedule. Wake up, go to school, stay late at the library, go to the gym to shower and work out my frustration, then drive back to my parking spot to sleep. It was cold, humiliating, and exhausting, but the burning anger kept me going. I continued to ace my tests, fueled by the sheer desperation to prove them wrong. I started a detailed document on my laptop. I chronicled everything. Mrs. Harrison's initial offer, my mother's work contract, the exact date I was kicked out, the texts I had sent Mark begging for help, and every passive-aggressive comment Sarah and Mrs. Harrison had made. I had text screenshots, dates, times, and even a photo of the broken doll before the pieces were cleaned up. It was my evidence, my shield, and my weapon. So that's the situation I was in. I was a straight-A student, homeless and sleeping in his car, Thanks to a malicious lie and my so-called best friend's cowardice. I was invisible to them. A problem they had conveniently erased. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have just finished out the year, suffered in silence, and moved on? Or would you have found a way to make them regret every single moment of their selfishness? I decided that silence was complicity. They had gambled on my meekness, assuming I would just fade away. They were wrong. My final revenge was not about petty destruction. It was about public accountability, leveraging the one thing they valued more than anything: their pristine, charitable image. I knew Mark's family was heavily involved in a major local nonprofit fundraiser gala, an event that was the pinnacle of their social calendar, and Mrs. Harrison was the chairwoman. It was happening in 3 days. That's when the idea of the poor kid suddenly having a voice came to me, a voice amplified by the internet. I created an anonymous account on a site that allows people to post long, personal stories. I didn't want to post it on Reddit directly, but I knew the niche. People sharing shocking personal drama. I didn't hold back. I posted the full, detailed story, exactly as I just told you, including the screenshots of the text from Mark showing he knew I was innocent and the dates of the eviction. I presented the facts plainly, ending with a rhetorical question that went viral instantly. How much is the cost of charity when it costs a kid his home just to save an antique doll? I then did the one thing I knew would bring the story to the exact people who could destroy their image. I emailed the link to a few major drama commentators and storytellers on YouTube, specifically tagging the one I knew had the biggest reach and the most dramatic presentation style: SS Sniper Wolf. I included a simple anonymous note. Story about a family destroying a kid's future to protect a fragile reputation. Perfect for your next video. It worked faster and bigger than I could have imagined. Snipperwolf's team picked up the story the next day. Her video went up that night, titled something like, "Rich Kicks Homeless Kid Out Over a Broken Doll. The Shocking Truth." The video was dramatic, emotional, and she thoroughly dismantled Mrs. Harrison's character, using my perfectly documented story as a case study in hypocrisy. The comments section exploded. The story was everywhere within hours. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Mrs. Harrison's phone lines must have been melting. She was the face of the upcoming gala, and suddenly, the nonprofit she chaired was being slammed on social media, accused of having a charity chairperson who hates the poor. Her co-chairwoman, panicked by the impending disaster, forced a leave of absence on her just hours before the gala, citing unforeseen reputational risks. That glittering gala she had poured her heart into, the one that validated her entire social existence, was ruined for her. The school principal, alerted by dozens of emails from concerned community members who had seen the video, called me into his office, utterly bewildered. He didn't ask me to confirm the story. He asked me if I was okay and where I was staying. He was actually genuinely concerned for my welfare, which was a first. He told me the Harrisons were denying everything, claiming I was lying and emotionally unstable, but the mountain of evidence and the public outrage were too much. I simply pulled out my phone and showed him a photo of the back seat of my Ford Focus, my bedroom for the last 2 weeks, and told him the entire truth, keeping my tone calm and factual. The next day, I was quietly given access to a secure and used student lounge area with a small cot until the school could coordinate with my mother and a local social worker. I was safe, but the real sweet climax was Mark. He cornered me in the hallway, his face white, shaking with panic. "Alex, what have you done? My mom is going crazy. She lost the gala. Why would you do this?" I looked him dead in the eye, and for the first time, I felt no sadness, only cold certainty. "You chose a porcelain doll and a mean girl over me, Mark. You watched me pack my bags and drove off with Sarah. You knew the truth and let me sleep in a car. Now the world knows the truth. This is what best friends do when they're pushed too far." He tried to apologize, to backtrack, but it was too late. I walked away, leaving him to face the consequences of his ultimate cowardice. My mom was able to adjust her contract and came back a week later, furious but relieved. The school ensured I had counseling and a temporary place to stay until she arrived. We got a new, better apartment, and I finished my senior year with honors. Mark and Sarah broke up a month later. Apparently, she couldn't handle the social shame that now clung to him. I never spoke to Mark again. Mrs. Harrison eventually had to step down from all her nonprofit positions. Their reputation, which was the foundation of their power, was permanently tarnished. I didn't just get revenge, I got justice and my life back. The lesson I took from this whole mess is that your dignity is the last thing they can take from you. And when someone tries to silence you, sometimes the only option is to scream your truth from the highest rooftop. Don't ever let people with power and money treat you like you're disposable. It will take a piece of you to do what I did, but I have no regrets. The scholarship money is safe, I'm headed to college, and I can finally close this traumatic chapter. Like this video if you were on my side, subscribe for more stories like this where the underdog fights back, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did Mark deserve to lose his best friend? Should Mrs. Harrison have been ruined by a Reddit story? Let me know. I'll see you all in the next story.